give more returns. Get more security and more interest on your fixed deposits from Sri Lanka's largest finance company, LMDtv Finance.
To curb corruption, one must be courageous to confront and rise up against the corrupt. Sleep well, be guided by ethics and standards for peace of mind. Refresh Sri Lanka for a civic-minded society. In association with 99X. LMD, the voice of business.
Hello and welcome to LMDtv. Tonight on the forum, we're going to talk about Sri Lanka's export sector downturn. And with us, we have the chairman of the Exporters Association of Sri Lanka, Ranil Goonetilleke. Ranil, it's very nice to have you on the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me.
To start off our conversation, as we all know, Sri Lanka's export sector is facing a lot of trials and challenges in quest to improve exports for 2023 compared to last year. Can you share your assessment of this challenge?
Yeah, so there are several factors that have led to exports from Sri Lanka to its current predicament. Firstly, the impact of the COVID pandemic. However, the COVID pandemic not only affected us, but it affected other countries as well. It was a global phenomenon. As a result, economic slowdowns were experienced in almost all the countries. However, thereafter, the events that occurred were unique to Sri Lanka, which is that all industries, including exports, had to undergo extreme difficulties. So it was the fertilizer ban, which affected agriculture-based exports such as tea, rubber, fruit, vegetable, etc. And on the heels of it, the economic turmoil, which caused massive challenges in the economy. And of course, the shortages we experienced, the severe dollar crisis, and with it, the massive fuel and power shortages, all led to a period where economic activity was virtually came to a standstill. Now, we can supply our buyers, and when that happens, we are putting them out of inventory or the products we supply. So if you put yourself in the buyer's shoes, what are they're going to tell their customers, right? So then also we put them in a bit of a awkward situation. And worse, when stories of our internal turmoil are reported in the news and played over and over again on global TV channels and social media, Sri Lanka loses its credibility big time. So what happened was our buyers have they sought alternative supply channels from other countries. And also, in addition to all this spiraling inflation too led to cost increases, and therefore exposed to a good beating from both margins reduced because of our cost increases. And also when we did pass on our cost increases to the market, we outpriced our products, and it remains now a massive challenge. So now the challenge is we have to regain our lost market share, whilst at the same time, and very importantly, rebuilding trust and restoring credibility on our ability to supply continuously. So it's a cohesive effort that is needed, involving all stakeholders, and the exporters alone cannot fight a lone battle. So that's where it is at the moment.
It's no secret that the country's traditional exports are tumbling. How can these be revived?
Yeah, so traditional exports we are talking of them tea, rubber, coconuts, fruit, vegetables, and spices, right? So traditionally, these have been in bulk form, where value addition happens overseas. However, we have now moved into value-added product, which is a good thing. So, and also there are other crops like betel leaves, coconuts, cocoa, and things like that, which are also exported traditionally. If you take tea, the exports have dropped from about US 1 billion in 2018 to now about US dollars 1.2 billion in 22. So there is a drop. And this year, of course, tea exports up to August have recorded marginal increase by 6%, but of course, it is based on the base is last year, which is very low. So the economic crisis again we faced had a major impact on the tea sector. The unavailability of chemical fertilizers, weedicides, fuel, financial constraints all led to a rising cost and massive logistic struggles, which resulted in a drop in production. Then, of course, we also had the frequent outages of electrical power, which hampered factory operations. And as a result, we have lost some export markets to India, Kenya, and Vietnam, etc., due to these crop shortage and high prices. The same goes for rubber. In the case of rubber and rubber products, there has been a decrease of about 6% compared to last year. So the decline is expected to be much sharper during 2023 as output has plummeted by about 15%, set to plummet due to the impact of the circular spot leaf disease and the lingering consequence of the fertilizer shortage. So both exports are in trouble, and Sri Lanka exports about a 1 billion worth of rubber products, which includes value-added things like gloves, solid tires, etc. Then also it's interesting to know that Sri Lanka needs about 150,000 metric tons of rubber to add value and make it into value-added exports, but the country can produce only 70 to 80,000. So, and the rest we have to import from countries like India, Thailand, Vietnam, but prices from those countries are cheaper. And also, Sri Lanka has no scale in the production of rubber, and our costs are very high. Also, when you speak to the people in those industries, what they say is our trees are 35 to 40 years old, whereas the productive lifespan of a tree is said to be around 20 to 30 years. So short term, rubber production will be restored with the rubber and tea production both will be restored to the pre-fertilizer ban levels with the when the fertilizer is available, agrochemicals and all that is available, of course supported by appropriate rainfall. However, here again we need to restore the lost credibility and regain the markets. So also the same is the case with tea. Tea also, I have been told that the trees are sort of quite old. I'm not sure whether this data is correct, but some trees are as old as 100 years. And so the same problem we have for rubber, we also have for tea. So in the short term, when the fertilizer available and the chemicals and all that available and the rainfall is appropriate, the volumes will pick up. But the bigger problem is to increase production in the long run for both tea and rubber. So in the longer term, a strategy I think needs to be put in place and action to address the large issues of this dwindling production and productivity due to old trees in both these two sectors. And also considerable investment therefore have to be plowed back in developing the plantations to increase productivity. So for example, senile tea bushes must be replaced with new plants. And also there is a huge dearth of labor there because most of the labor have come into the urban areas looking for more easier jobs, and most of them have ended up as being having driving trishaws and petrol stations and all that. So vacancies in these estates also must be filled by an extensive infilling program, and labor productivity has to be enhanced. So the same with rubber, the aged rubber trees must be replaced with new ones, and also we must also find new land for planting, replanting, and increasing scale. So for that purpose, of course, altered land must be released. Since rubber is traditionally planted in the wet zone, what they are looking at is, move to the dry areas, and therefore, so R&D has to be done to sort of make a new clone suited for the dry areas. And it's also interesting to note that 85% of the rubber production rests with smallholders, while 75% of tea also rests with smallholders. Now, when we need sort of rebuilding like the way we are thinking of in the long term, the smallholders lack the funds, the financial will and resources to invest. So we have a bit of a problem there. Short term, yes, once all these issues are sorted out and settled in, it will get back to our normal levels. But long term, I think we need to all find a solution there, those in the industry.
I think, like you said, right now we're focusing on survival strategies, whereas we should also think of strategies to sustain.
Correct. But the danger there is when we do that, we lose sight of the long term, and these problems can recur again. And then, as you can see, the acreage that they have also solid minerals because of they plant other crops, all that to support income. And therefore, the land available for these traditional products also keep coming down.
Let's talk about apparel. Apparel is Sri Lanka's largest industrial export, and it has served and saved the country through many decades. But right now it's facing severe issues. Can you shed some light on the apparel sector's downturn for us?
Yeah, so apparel and textiles have around a 45% share in our export basket, and it's around 6 billion US. And unfortunately, what has happened is the global demand has dropped and has led to about a 20% decline, which has affected not only us, most apparel manufacturing countries. So according to estimates, we have also had to lay off a significant number of people also. But the main thing is due to the economic, crisis, global economic crisis, which has destroyed the demand for garments. Also, must understand, United States, who are in recession, is the main importer of apparel from Sri Lanka. They account about, I think, 76% of our total apparel exports. The other markets are UK and EU. So all these markets are facing economic downturns and high inflation. So when in a situation like that, the consumer is a bit more careful in his or her discretionary spending as other essentials take priority. So that is what has happened. So it is not something to do with the crisis that we had, because I think even during the crisis times, we made sure that the apparel industry sort of managed, because they had their export income coming in and it was given priority. But what has happened globally has impacted the industry as now. It's interesting to note that that US imports of textiles and apparel has declined by about 23%. Right, so it is in the first 5 months of 23, from it is now US $42 billion, whereas it was 55 billion US the same period. So that is what has led to the decline in this industry.
And are there any lessons that we can take from regional apparel exporters like Bangladesh, who seems to be navigating the global downturn better than us?
So there again is very interesting. So Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, they have both taken a dip, because both depend on US to sort of import bulk of our apparel. However, Bangladesh exposed to Europe, it's a different story, because Bangladesh gets preferential trade arrangements, as they are classified as one of the 46 least developed countries, whereas Sri Lanka is not. So therefore, if you take the per caps, Bangladesh per caps is about 1,800 range, while Sri Lanka per caps around 3,800 range US dollars. So least developed countries have preferential market access, of which one is Europe, and hence exports to Europe from Bangladesh is cheaper vis-a-vis that from Sri Lanka, because there are duty concessions, all that. So when our garments go to Europe, it's charged a duty, whereas when Bangladesh garments go to Europe, the duty is waived off. So in the marketplace, they have a price advantage. And when the economy is in downturn, that's Europe economy in downturn, less costly goods have an advantage, as it attracts buyers, because people then go for sort of the less expensive alternatives. And also must remember that Bangladesh has advantage over Sri Lanka due to their comparatively lower cost of production and much greater scale. Bangladesh labor, I think there's abundance of labor that's far cheaper than ours. And also the other costs of production is said to be far cheaper than that of Sri Lanka. And also Bangladesh has much greater scale. For example, there are some 7,000 factories employing 4 million people in Bangladesh, accounting for 42 billion revenue, whereas Sri Lanka has approximately about 300 factories and revenue is around 6 billion. And Sri Lanka employs around 300,000 direct and about another 600,000 indirect. So in this backdrop, Bangladesh has a distinct advantage because of the global conditions and because of their scale and their ability to produce at a lower cost than Sri Lanka. So no real lessons. Only lesson is Bangladesh has, they have 5 FTAs, whereas Sri Lanka has 3. So we also need to focus on, sort of getting FTAs signed up with most of the countries that we want to, or some of the countries we want to deal with.
It's time to take a short break, but we'll soon return to talk more about the export sector downturn.
Display your brand message on digital screens at prime locations. The largest digital advertising network in Sri Lanka. Emerging media.
You're mobile, and so are we.
Gets me going.
Grab the Lite 87 app at the Apple App Store or Google Play now.
87.8 and 87.6 island-wide. Lite 87.
Welcome back to the show. Tonight, we have with us the chairman of the Exporters Association of Sri Lanka, Ranil Goonetilleke. And in your view, how important is it for Sri Lanka to create a more exporter-friendly environment?
Yes, so Sri Lanka, again, I'll repeat, Sri Lanka depends on a couple of sectors for its export income. It's tourism, tea, rubber, coconut export, apparel, textile, seafood, spices, and other agricultural products. So in addition to these sectors, overseas employment plus FDIs contribute significantly foreign exchange. And also tourism, I mentioned, yes. And it is therefore very important to have an exporter-friendly society. So currently, I think we have plans in modernizing our systems and process and all that, but still the exporters are inconvenienced with the sort of old archaic procedures and manual systems where they sometimes are forced to spend loads of time and effort to sort of manage the regulatory, I would use the word impediments. And when that happens, that is time, and time is money. For example, a single window for export facilitation, which has been promised years and years, but that has still not happened. So we are still grappling with this, the old systems, and even digitalization, although internet and widely spoken, is slow in its implementation. So then also to address all these, there was a national export strategy which was done somewhere in 2017, which covers the period 2018 to 2022. But there again, now that spells out in detail what needs to be done in terms of modernization, kind of bringing this exporter-friendly whole environment together. But sadly, its implementation is very, very poor. So therefore, until there are appropriate policies put in place, it's very, very difficult to get this whole export environment going. And also, if you're exporting a product, all touch points in the process, including logistics and all those who are the regulatory authorities, must be quality minded and cohesive. The customer should receive the products on time and the highest quality possible. Even when you take tourism, let's moving away from the export industry, even tourism, we have to ensure that tourists gets a good experience. And recently I read on social media, our tourists had been shivering in a flight on a bus journey, I think from Colombo to Polonnaruwa, as the bus had been driven so recklessly. And I think as soon as the bus stopped, she had gone and complained to the police. So we are used to this kind of nonsense, but if you are serious enough in attracting foreign visitors and even things like road discipline have to be given careful thought. So everyone in the social fabric has a role to play. And it's a tough ask given this environment, but we all have to shoulder the responsibility of creating an exporter-friendly society. So we have, of course, as an association and collectively, we have brought these issues up several times, but the resolutions are very slow in coming. But you're very right. Everybody has to be export-minded. Let's put it that way, and we have to together create a more exporter-friendly environment. It's very difficult, but I think we will at some point get there. That's the thing to look forward to.
You spoke of the need for regulations, for frameworks, and the infrastructure. Now, if we look at the exporters themselves, how should the local export community really work collaboratively towards the growth of the country's export potential?
Yeah, so there is a national export strategy that had been drawn up. It had 500 plus participants, of various sectors, mainly the export community and government. It's a public-private thing that had been done, and that covers, how the strategy on how we should take this forward. So that gives, the new products that we need to have, all that has been identified, and how the different touch points should, be digitized, basically technology introduced, all that. But there again, it has not worked. So the vision outlined therein is also guided by four strategic objectives, which is like creating a predictable and transparent policy and regulatory framework. So drive export diversification through innovation, so strengthening emerging export sectors by improving market entry and compliance capacities. All this to be an efficient and trade logistics hub. And this should be a common thread that binds all stakeholders to collectively work towards the growth of the country's exports. So I think we have started discussion again, and I think we need to, have programs like that in place where it continues irrespective of who the government is, because that is very very important for the exports, and it is of course to the benefit of Sri Lanka, and we need to get the cohesiveness of everybody involved for this cause.
We've been talking a lot about the export sector's downturn, and also we've been talking about solutions. I know it's very hard to predict or project anything right now, given the country's situation. But if I ask you, when do you think there will be a turnaround, and how can we get there faster?
Yes, so the global, the once the economy settles down in globally, and also this fertilizer issue and other short-term matters are sorted out, we will see a turnaround, right? But we have to take measures to address long-term issues. Otherwise, we will not. For example, other countries have grown in leaps and bounds, and we are kind of growing very slowly. So I keep again, I will harp on this export strategy. So if we are serious in growing exports, we have to basically action. Otherwise we will be just talking, creating strategies, all that, and that, I must tell you, is a more easier part. The difficult part is implementation. And I think we should set about a plan to kind of action it, and I think it should be led by an official authority who reports directly to the president of the country, because it's such an important thing. And it should be the strategy should be changed only to make amendments to suit the current environment. And also the FTAs of course are not a cure for all ills, and it's not going to just shoot up exports, but it will give a toe in the door to countries that we are targeting for export. So we've been coming up with good plans, but what has not been forthcoming is the action. Again, it's not easy, but as again, to answer your question, it will, with all these things getting sorted out, we will get back to our normal export level. But I think we have to implement these long-term plans. The laws have to be changed to modern times. Some laws introduced, bureaucratic obstacles removed or minimized, and some serious steps will have to be taken, to basically action, so that everyone is coherent and cohesive in this quest to get all the, to get exports going.
And we will all remain optimistic that everyone will get their act together.
Yes, we have to not only stay optimistic, but do things now to sort of get it moving. Otherwise, we will just hope, and even a few years down the road, we'll be in the same position. As a young student, as a young executive, when we look back, the same problems that we faced at that time, we are still having. So it means we haven't got solutions, permanent solutions, and we haven't moved much forward. And almost every day, we've been grappling with issues and sorting out issues, and very slow in progression.
As you know, LMD launched a campaign titled Refresh Sri Lanka to encourage a mindset change and create a more civic-minded society in Sri Lanka. Looking at the export sector and all its stakeholders, how can we ensure that civic-mindedness is not ignored in our quest for more export revenue?
Yeah, so Refresh Sri Lanka talks about people being civic-minded, and it has the pillars of honesty, professionalism, and ethics, law and order, zero tolerance of bribery, corruption, paying our taxes, and waste disposal. Now, it's not only the export sector, but the industry and society as a whole must be civic-minded. And I think overall, being civic-mindedness has sort of perished seemingly beyond redemption. Look at how we drive on the roads. We have no regard for law and order, zero tolerance, honesty. Not a single day goes by where the topic of corruption doesn't come up, even in our casual conversation. right? So something come when you read the papers, all that, even in casual conversation, this corruption comes up, so and so, that kind of thing. Professionalism, every profession has many black sheep tainted with allegations and corruptions and unethical behavior, all that, and these unethical values have been entrenched in our society. Those days, people were shy about it. Now people are not shy about it also. Look at the way how people throw garbage. Sometimes I have seen people just fling the bag out of the car window. Right, you take a walk opposite, watershed, opposite watershed. There is like a park. Industrial waste is thrown down the banks of the Devana. Now nobody there, not checked. The industry is, not bothered. There is no environmental police. It's a sin how littering and polluting our country. So civic mindedness is gone. It is I think gone to very low depths, and there are no proper policies in place. And law enforcement sometimes we see it as very selective and gives protection for those not civic minded. And there's no point actually getting the job done at any cost if your values are compromised. And also, it's due to sometimes due lack of policy and commitment and the presence of some naysayers in places of authority. Sometimes you're compelled to get the job done one way or the other. So this we must somehow resist. Otherwise, we will perish further. Buyers will be reluctant to buy their products from countries with population not civic minded. Even us, we don't want to deal with some party who's corrupt and has a bad reputation. We don't want to. We don't want to be seen with them even. And the industry must lead by example, of course, by being civic minded. And now, for example, most countries don't deal with suppliers who employ child labor or does not practice sometimes green initiatives. So it will again slowly come to us, right? And they will be reluctant to trade with us. And I think in that perspective, Refresh Sri Lanka is a very good initiative. So it must be publicized, and people must be educated. People must feel shy about if they are not behaving properly. All that must be basically ingrained back again into society. All the behaviors.
We've been talking with the chairman of the Exporters Association of Sri Lanka, Ranil Goonetilleke. Thank you very much for being on the show with us.
Thank you. Thank you once again for inviting me. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
And thank you to all our viewers for joining us tonight. Until next time, take care.
Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Thank you for watching and stay safe.